In Berger's essay, Ways of Seeing, he discusses three main points regarding the manner in which we perceive art. The first is that we, as humans, try to create a relationship between what we are seeing and language, and we try to express this verbally. However, Berger states that there will always be some kind of an inconsistency and discrepancy in doing this. The second is that background knowledge regarding a piece of art will change one's original perception and the meaning of the piece. The final idea that Berger argues in his essay is that reproductions can distort and/or destroy the original meaning of a piece of art. In this video, Berger's theories will be put to the test. In order to do this, I have interviewed two people about four famous paintings from the Impressionist period. Two of the paintings have an elaborate background story, while the others have been reproduced numerous times. The first painting was Ravijn by Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh was a Dutch Impressionist painter in the 20th century. His works are known for their unique brushstrokes, rough beauty, and vivid colors. However, Van Gogh is most notorious for being mentally ill. Ravijn is one of the paintings with an elaborate background story. However, before the subject was informed of the story, she is asked to describe the painting. This is what she said.
Well, it looks like a scenery for like a river and a forest maybe, or just like a valley between two foresty mountains.
I then proceeded to ask her whether she believed that there is a gap between perception and language, and she answered in the affirmative. After that, the subject read the painting's blurb, which read, "In June 1889, shortly after his arrival at an asylum in the southern French town of Saint-Rémy, Van Gogh painted a riotous study of a flowering hillside. He sent a pen and ink copy of the painting to his brother in early July. Months later, in October, the artist found himself without fresh canvas on which to paint, and decided to sacrifice the study of wild vegetation to paint this view of the mountainous ravine near the asylum. The subject was then asked whether her perception of the painting had changed, and this was her response.
Well, first of all, knowing the artist changes the way you look at the painting, knowing his background and his type of thought or ways of painting, and then the purpose after painting this and the story behind the painting changes the way you look at it, because like for a first instance it just looked like some kind of river in a forest, but now it has more depth in it.
After that, we moved on to the second painting, Slave Ship by Joseph Mallord William Turner. Turner was an English painter that was a pioneer of the Impressionist movement in the 19th century. He was considered to be somewhat of a rebel in his day due to the controversial subjects of his paintings. Like Ravijn, Slave Ship is one of the paintings with an elaborate background story. However, before I informed the subject of the story, I asked her to describe the painting. This is what she said.
Well, from where I'm standing, it looks like a beautiful sunset and like a great mix of colors of the ocean and the sky, and a ship in the distance.
After that, she read the painting's blurb, which read, "One of Turner's most celebrated works, Slave Ship is a striking example of the artist's fascination with violence, both human and elemental. The painting was based on a poem that described a slave ship caught in a typhoon, and on the true story of the slave ship Zong, whose captain, in 1781, had thrown overboard sick and dying slaves so that he could collect insurance money only available for slaves lost at sea." Turner captures the horror of the event and terrifying grandeur of nature through hot churning color and light that merge sea and sky. The subject was then asked whether her perception of the painting had changed, and this was her answer.
Well, it's 180% degree change, because at first, like I mentioned, how it looked like a beautiful sunset, but now after reading what the painting is about, it's about human pain and slaves and ships sinking and all those people dying in the ocean. So it kind of just changes the perspective of picture from something peaceful to something tragic.
Soon after, I interviewed a different subject for the third painting, Monet's Water Lilies. Claude Monet was a French painter who was one of the founders of Impressionism in the 19th century. Despite being criticized by many people during his time, Monet remained faithful to his Impressionist ideals. He is well known for helping coin the term Impressionism with his painting Impression Sunrise. Water Lilies is the first of the two paintings that I focused on that has been reproduced various times. Before I showed the new subject one of the reproductions, I had him try and describe the painting, and this was his attempt to do so.
So this is Claude Monet called Water Lilies, and that is what it is. It's water lilies on a calm body of water, and you can see pink in the reflection of the water. It's a bit of blue and green, possibly a reflection from the sky and the trees. And the water lilies are all green in different clumps, and it's not as if it's photographic, it's slightly abstract, but you can still tell what it is, where the colors are a bit blended and you can see differences in the brush strokes and different lengths and patterns to them. Starting at the top with, in the top left with some, like a dark green, and then kind of bringing that dark green color all the way across to the right to where it ends in pink with light green. So it's kind of like a variant in colors from top to bottom. And on the lilies themselves, there's little flowers that are pink, purple, and red.
I then asked him, like the other subject, whether he thought there was a gap between perception and language, and this was his response.
Of course, words could never describe paintings, because within the painting is, of course, the concealed emotion, because it's just like the difference between text and audible sound. When you're hearing someone speak, you can hear the emotion behind what they're saying, and then when you see someone speak and you're standing with them, you can see their body language, the subconscious things they're trying to tell you, like under their breath maybe, or by the way they're standing, their eye contact, no eye contact. And it's the same thing with paintings, where depending on how the attitude of the brushstroke, depending on the way the colors are, depending on how crisp it is, everyone's trying to say something different, and obviously you can't easily tell these sort of extremely complex and intricate designs in painting from words, because words just can't express that kind of emotion. We just don't have words for that sort of thing.
I then showed the subject the reproduction and asked whether it distorted his perception, the meaning of the original painting, and this was his answer.
They couldn't show the exact colors used in the painting. Everything here at this level of art is intended for a purpose, and everything means something specific. So in any reproduction, you're going to have changes in the exact colors, you're going to have changes in the layering of the paint. It just could never be the same. So you know, if you bring it down to just a printing level, just pixelation of the painting, just anytime you take anything from real paint and digitize it, you're never going to get the same sort of intensity that you can with paint, and it's impossible to see the same meaning without having the painting itself. It just could never be the same.
We then moved on to the fourth and final painting, the Scene at Chateau by Renoir. Pierre-Auguste Renoir was, like Monet, a French artist in the 19th century who was one of the founders of the Impressionist movement. He was notorious for his portraits of children, women, and groups of leisurely people. As done previously, I asked the subject to try and describe the painting as best he could. This was his answer.
Most simple yet intricate paintings that I've ever seen. Probably one of the hardest paintings to describe. It is a landscape in the springtime by the Seine. There's sailboats, there's what looks to be maybe a child carrying flowers. It's a very floral scene. There are trees in the background on the other side of the river. There's sailboats, there's a house in the background, and rolling hills and flowing grasses. It's just a very beautiful scene, but the way that it was painted is in a way that all of the colors are blended together. So there's every color you can really imagine. So when you look up close to it, there's one blooming tree, I want to say in particular, that has every color of the rainbow, all seemingly in random combinations of colors if you look close enough. That it's all, looks like you took all the paint, put it onto a piece of paper, folded in half, took it apart, and then dabbed it onto the painting. But when you stand back, you get a perfectly legitimate image. And that's pretty much how everything is, depending on the size of the brush strokes, depending on the way that he dabbed the paint onto the canvas. You get different textures and designs that are quite intricate.
After doing so, he was then showed a reproduction of the painting like before, and was asked whether it warped his perception in the meaning of the original painting, and this was his response.
Yes, I would say, of course, that the reproduction does, of course, distort the meaning because you can't see any depth. And depth is one of the most important things in this painting. It takes a lot out of it. The colors aren't as vibrant. You can't see the brush strokes. You can't see the dimensions of the painting. And that's the most important part, I'd say.
Based off the findings from these interviews, one could say that all of Berger's theories were proven to be true. This is due to the fact that not only did the subjects find the correlation between language and perception to be a rocky one, but they also found that background knowledge and reproductions could change their perception and the meaning of the original painting. Thus, any argument that states otherwise can be considered null and void.